have some new reporting that at this critical moment where Trump needs lawyers to defend his policies the most, we are seeing instead a mass exodus from the Department of Justice Federal Programs branch. For example, they would be the ones who would go in court and defend Trump's illegal birthright citizenship order. They would be the ones that go in court and defend Doge's mass firings. Well, these attorneys, it is a branch within the Civil Rights Division that handles the defense of the president, the cabinet, government agencies, exactly in those lawsuits that we're seeing.
What happens when Donald Trump's own attorneys decide he's no longer worth defending? It's not just big news, it's historic. Find out why his legal team jumped ship and what this means for Trump's future, both in court and out of it. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
They are seeing an unprecedented level of resignations. 69 of the 110 lawyers within that branch are gone, are leaving. My name is Dina Dahl with the Midas Touch Network. Let's break this down. So new reporting by Reuters has gone in and seen the list of lawyers who existed and no longer exist. And since Trump took office, 10 out of the 23 supervisors have left. A few of these lawyers have spoken to Reuters, and they say the things that make sense to those of us who have been following along.
Imagine being such a nightmare of a client that even the people paid to stand by you in court just don't want to anymore. That's precisely the situation Donald Trump has found himself in, and it seems to be happening with alarming frequency. The latest blow to his legal defenses came when one of his more high-profile law firms decided enough was enough and officially cut ties. But this isn't some isolated scandal. This is part of a pattern. Trump's lawyers aren't just quitting, they're fleeing, and the exodus keeps growing. You have to wonder, what's really going on behind the scenes? The legal team walking away this time is hardly the first to do it. Over the past year alone, Trump has gone through lawyers like most of us go through coffee filters, one after another, discarded and replaced. At first glance, you'd think any attorney would kill to work on such a public, high-stakes case. After all, Trump isn't just any client, he's a former president, one of the most polarizing figures in American history, and a constant headline maker. For lawyers, taking on his defense could mean making a name for themselves in front of the entire country. But as some of them are now saying quietly, or not so quietly, it might also mean wrecking their careers in the process. So why exactly are these lawyers jumping ship faster than rats off a sinking yacht? Well, according to reports, it's not just one thing. It's a nasty cocktail of internal drama, unpaid bills, and, surprise, surprise, Trump himself. Let's start with those unpaid bills. Rumor has it, Trump has a habit of stiffing the very people trying to save him. From the construction workers who built his casinos to the attorneys trying to help him dig out of his current legal mess, there's a long list of people who say they've had a great time working for Trump until payday rolled around. And while some law firms might let one or two unpaid invoices slide, it's safe to assume legal work isn't cheap. When you constantly leave your lawyers playing bill collector, things are bound to get awkward. Then there's the chaos factor. Trump is reportedly the kind of client that makes a lawyer want to pull their hair out, and not just because of his legal troubles. He's been described as unpredictable, argumentative, and utterly unwilling to take advice. Imagine spending hours preparing a careful legal strategy only for your client to toss it aside live on television with some wild, off-the-cuff claim that contradicts everything you've worked on. And that's not even the worst part. Apparently, when lawyers push back, pleading with him to stick to the facts or avoid digging himself deeper into trouble, they're often met with tantrums and accusations of disloyalty. If you thought working in high-stakes law was stressful, try adding Trump's legendary ego into the mix. But the struggles don't stop there. Multiple reports have pointed out that Trump has allegedly demanded his attorneys pursue strategies that range from highly questionable to outright bizarre. Some have hinted that he wanted his team to argue conspiracy theories in court. Yes, you heard that right. Imagine standing in front of a judge and being asked to somehow legally prove claims better suited to late-night Twitter rants. Unsurprisingly, many lawyers aren't willing to gamble their reputations on strategies like these, which brings us to another big issue: the career-killing potential of defending Trump. It's no secret that working for Trump can create a PR disaster for anyone involved. One former attorney described it as having a giant target painted on your back. The second you join Trump's legal team, every aspect of your life gets dragged into the spotlight. Critics pick apart your resume, reporters dig into your past cases, and your inbox floods with angry messages from his fans and his detractors alike. And if things go really south, as they often do, you could be the one taking the fall. Some lawyers have said privately that they didn't just quit because of Trump himself. They quit because they didn't want to become collateral damage. But what's the tipping point? Surely not every lawyer would quit a case just because it was tough or a little embarrassing. So, what's making Trump's legal team throw in the towel this time? Well, there's talk that Trump's recent legal issues have turned into a perfect storm, mounting public scrutiny, courtroom losses piling up, and Trump's refusal to stop making statements that, according to some legal experts, could be used against him. As one insider put it, it's hard to defend a client who's always making things worse. And yet, despite all these headaches, some lawyers initially saw the appeal of standing by Trump. The prospect of representing a former president, however controversial, is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A shot at legal fame, if you will. But the reality of working for him has proven too much for most. It's not just a demanding job. It's a draining, high-stress swamp of endless damage control. And for those left behind, the ultimate question remains: what was the final straw? What finally drove this latest law firm to join the long list of Trump's ex-legal allies? Stay tuned, because we're just getting started. What kind of demands could possibly drive seasoned, high-paid lawyers to slam the door and never look back? Well, let's just say Trump isn't the kind of client who calmly nods along and trusts the process. According to reports, his demands didn't just skirt the line of unreasonable, they pole-vaulted over it. Lawyers close to him described constant battles over strategies that were unrealistic at best and utterly unhinged at worst. Some of the things he allegedly insisted on weren't just legally questionable. They were outright impossible to execute. Even the most dedicated team player lawyers aren't signing up to argue conspiracy theories in front of a judge. And believe it or not, that's exactly what sources claim Trump wanted. In one case, he allegedly pushed his legal team to build an entire defense based on debunked election fraud theories. Picture this: a courtroom full of serious attorneys, judges, and a legal team squirming as Trump demands they pull out a strategy straight from the QAnon handbook. For the lawyers, this wasn't just cringeworthy, it was career suicide. One of them reportedly tried to explain to Trump that walking into court with baseless conspiracy theories wouldn't just lose the case, it could humiliate all involved. But instead of conceding, Trump doubled down, reacting with what insiders called his infamous temper tantrums. It wasn't just these wild demands that had lawyers looking for an exit. Another constant issue was Trump's insistence on micromanaging his team. Now, for someone who thrives on control, this might sound predictable. But when you hire a legal team, the idea is to actually let the professionals do their job. Trump, however, apparently saw things differently. He's said to have demanded loyalty from his attorneys, not loyalty to the law, but loyalty to himself, personally. And when lawyers tried to give him real-world advice, things reportedly went south quickly. One former team member recounted a story of telling Trump straight up that his plan wouldn't hold up in court. Instead of a conversation, the lawyer was met with red-faced yelling and accusations of not being loyal enough. But let's talk about the elephant in the room: Trump's alleged obsession with winning at all costs. Winning isn't a bad thing to want. The trouble comes when the road to winning involves strategies that leave your lawyers sitting with their heads in their hands. Trump allegedly pressured his team to make impossible arguments to avoid any appearances of loss, no matter how much it contradicted reality. This was especially clear in cases related to his ongoing legal battles over classified documents, financial practices, and, you guessed it, election scandals. When lawyers tried to explain constitutional law or legal precedent, insiders claimed Trump would interrupt with his own theories, most of which you'd expect to hear on a fringe podcast, not in an actual courtroom. Legal experts have weighed in on this dynamic, and the verdict, pun intended, is unanimous. These demands aren't just unconventional, they're a recipe for disaster. One well-respected attorney observed that Trump seems far more interested in how he looks in the media than in actually winning his cases. Another noted that his pattern of ignoring legal advice could actually harm him long-term because even the best lawyers in the country can't save you if you're constantly creating problems worse than the ones you hired them to solve. Add to that Trump's tendency to go off script in interviews or rally speeches, many of which could potentially be used as evidence against him. And you've got what one lawyer hilariously compared to trying to bail out a sinking boat while the captain drills more holes into the hull. It's also worth mentioning how these demands have shaped public perception. Defending clients is standard for any lawyer, but defending Trump has become a public spectacle. His cases dominate headlines, and his attorneys find themselves under as much scrutiny as he is. Being associated with these high-profile trials might be tempting for a lawyer's resume, but when the client is someone like Trump, someone who ignores your advice, makes ridiculous requests, and blames everyone else when things go wrong, it stops looking like an opportunity and starts looking like a hazard. One piece of gossip from the legal grapevine really takes the cake. Trump reportedly suggested, at one point, filing a lawsuit against an entire government agency. Yes, you heard that right. An entire agency. When his lawyers reminded him that this would not only be legally impossible, but a PR nightmare, the suggestion was apparently dismissed as not getting what the boss wants. For some, that was the last straw. How do you argue for a client who refuses to live in the same universe as the law? In fact, several of Trump's former lawyers have admitted anonymously that staying on would have meant burying their careers. They feared that working for him, even if they managed to win a case, would permanently damage their reputation in the legal world. After all, once you're known as the lawyer who argued alternative facts, the sequel, in court, who's going to take you seriously again? And this is where his legal debacle becomes more than just his personal problem. With so many lawyers jumping ship, the question isn't just whether Trump's defense is falling apart, it's what happens next. With his history of burning bridges, you have to wonder how long he'll be able to keep finding anyone willing to take the job, because at this point, being Trump's lawyer isn't just a risk. It's turning into the kind of career move you might regret the second you sign the contract. All this leaves one big question hanging in the air. If his legal team keeps crumbling, what does this mean for Trump's future? Trump's revolving door of legal representation isn't just embarrassing. It's a flashing neon sign that his credibility is wearing thin, both in courtrooms and the public eye. 69 lawyers quitting from a federal branch under his administration shows just how toxic the association has become. Defending him seems less like a prestigious gig and more like risking your license over policies you don't believe in. So the real question is, who's next? Will he manage to find someone desperate or bold enough to step in? Or is this the slow unraveling of his legal defenses? One thing's for sure, his options are shrinking.